Dr. Romie Mushtaq, welcome to the Star Coach Show.
Meg, thank you so much for having me. I've been excited for this conversation, knowing that you and your audience gets it. And so I am excited to dive in.
Well, I'm excited to be with you. And, you're such a busy lady and doing so many incredible things. It took us just a little bit to get on with each other. So I have also been sort of biting at the bit to share what you do with the audience. I want to share with everybody a little bit about who you are and what you do so that it preps them and gets them excited about what we're going to be talking about as well. So you have created BrainSHIFT, which is a busy brain cure. We're going to be talking about what is busy brain with somebody so qualified to do it, because Dr. Romie is triple board certified physician. She's an award-winning speaker, a national media expert. If I can just take a second, if you haven't heard her TEDx talk, you're going to want to do that. For coaches, leaders, oh my gosh, you want to be able to dive into the breathing concept, which as a former therapist, so important. We got to breathe. So what Romie does is mixes her unique authority in neurology, integrative medicine, and mindfulness to transform cultures and teams. Now, that whole concept of teams is part of the reason why I was so excited to get you on the show, because so many of our listeners work with teams and try to help create healthier organizations. That's what you're doing all the time. So important. Now, what you currently do is so intriguing. You serve as Chief Wellness Officer at Evolution Hospitality, where you've scaled mindfulness and wellness program to over 7,000 employees. Think about all those people that are being benefited by the work that you do. So what you're primarily doing these days in your underutilized pre-pandemic talent is running through airports in high heels. I love that. So in pre-pandemic, she ran through airports in high heel shoes. That's what she talks about in her TED Talk too. It's great. It's just you bring your personality so much into that TEDx talk. So enough of all that, because that is how exciting it is to be
Oh,
with
thank
this
you.
person. Let's get ready to brain shift right
Yeah.
now and welcome Dr. Romie to the show.
Oh, Meg, thank
Where
you
do
so
we
that. Thank you. It's thank you for the warm welcome. And it's been a journey, and you're reading a journey that I'll say we're recording this in 2024. So I'd love to give you a couple of updates. I was one of the
please?
first chief wellness officers as a doctor in the country in 2018. I am now the chief wellness officer for Great Wolf Resorts, where I use data-driven
Oh,
solutions for whole person wellness. That just started in January. I apologize. You may have pulled a outdated bio up and not.
I apologize. I got that off your
Yes.
press
No,
kit,
no,
but I
but
do
yes.
but
But
how
yeah, and
fun. Great
so it
Wolf.
is. So over 12,000 employees using data-driven solutions to create whole person wellness. I am also the National USA Today and Amazon bestselling author of The Busy Brain Cure. And that's why we're here today. An update, I think, from the TED Talk 10 years ago. So 10 years ago, nobody was having that conversation about burnout in the workplace and mental health crisis. And that's really what got this journey started for me in workplace wellness. But 10 years later, the conversation has completely changed. And that's why we're here today.
Okay, so thank you for that. And I do apologize. I was trying to be sure that I had everything. And that just says how much more you've been doing. We have so many
It is. Yeah,
resources that we can access.
we can, and you said something in the beginning. Thank you. You're a busy woman, and what I'd like to say is I practice brain shift, and so I am a high achieving, unapologetic, success driven professional like yourself and all of your listeners. If I say I'm busy, then I am not doing something right. I am highly productive, and yes, there are days that I am human, and I feel like my schedule is controlling me rather than me controlling my schedule. But yes, I like to call it I'm productive and high achieving. And we want to model that for the other men and women out there that are listening, and that this is possible.
Absolutely. So let's start with this you transitioned from traditional medicine to stress management. There's reasons why you did that. What kind of motivated you to step into that place?
You could read my credentials and think it had to do with that, but I would tell you the authentic reason of why it's important for me to be on this podcast with you. The leaders that are listening and the high achieving coaches, the higher you go up in a hierarchy in your life and in your career, the lonelier you can get. In fact, today, the US Surgeon General says that that is the pandemic, the mental health and the loneliness. I remember this awful feeling walking through the hospital corridors. On the outside, it was shiny and perfect in my starch white lab coat. I had entered neurology at a time where less than 5% of the brain doctors in America were women. I loved my job. I was good at it. Not only was I seeing patients, I was doing cutting edge research and teaching medical students. And yet I was really suffering, and it started to show. And do you know, when I was going through that, not a single colleague asked if I was okay. They were gossiping behind my back. The nurses and EEG techs were telling me that, but nobody asked. And so I think you and I are here today to start this podcast to say, if you are listening as a helper or leader, you're not alone. Meg and I are here for you today. And it's a reminder to the rest of you that someone that may look shiny on the outside, check on them and ask them and let them know that you're here and that you care.
Oh, good. I think that they're societally, we like, oh, is this person busy? Are they going? It's almost like we glorify being overwhelmed. We glorify being stressed, and that can be really dangerous. What do we want to do instead?
Well, listen, two things here is when we're high achieving, we get stuck on something I call the stress success cycle. I look at it from this old adage. If you ever followed, if you were I call it the cassette tape generation, is how you got your music. It was fake it till you make it. If it's iPods and Spotify, it's put an Instagram or TikTok filter or Snapchat filter on it and pose is perfect. And it was this, I'm going to achieve a goal. Great. I want you to succeed, but you're going to stress yourself out to do it. And then you achieve that goal. And for some reason, you're like, what's next? You set another goal and you stress yourself out again. Stress is a cycle. So the only way your brain and you know how to achieve things is to live on the edge of burnout, where stress is a badge of honor. And we're at a point in 2024 and beyond, when I look at the research I've been doing in workplace wellness prior to and after the pandemic, most of the advice that's out there, and why it's so important for your coaches that are listening in the workplace, especially focusing on wellness, most of that stress management advice is actually outdated and no longer valid. We are living in a world where we're chronically stressed out. We're at something psychologically, which you can speak to really well, mental capacity. So it looks like that high achieving professional that has a routine task. They have to fill out an end of month sales report. You have to get up and give another talk in front of the board, and it'll push you over the edge and make you want to quit your job. And you're like, what happened to them? They handled this without a problem before. That's the adding one more drop of water to an already overflowing bucket of stress. And that's where we are today. And that was why I did the research and came up with the solution. And we break down what busy brain is in high achieving professionals and leaders and what the cure is.
So that's a perfect segue into, let's talk about what that cure is.
Yeah. Let's start by defining busy brain. Busy has nothing to do with the outside world, believe it or not. The 24-hour news cycle, an inbox that never quiets down, the messenger channels, our schedules. A busy brain is actually when we have thought, the only way I can succeed is to keep stressing myself out. So we're living under chronic stress, that stress that is persistent for days, weeks, months, years on end. And it creates a specific pattern of neuroinflammation in the brain, an area I call the airport traffic control tower of the brain, the hypothalamus and the SCN nucleus that governs our circadian rhythm and the entire system of the brain. And so I know you live in Dallas and I live in Orlando. So I think if I have to connect through the Dallas airport to go to the West Coast, and there's a rainstorm unexpectedly there in the hot summer of Dallas, the FAA tower will say, shut down any flights from landing or taking off in Dallas, right? So You would think it's just an inconvenience in Dallas, but it's not. Dallas is an international airport, and within minutes, flights are delayed and canceled in Orlando, LA, Hong Kong, London, Dubai, right? That's exactly the way the airport traffic control tower of our brain works. One more tipping point, and now all systems are stressed, and our airport traffic control tower is like a global airspace to the rest of our brain and body through something known as the psychoneuroimmunoendocrinology system, or the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. So it's connected to your memory and cognition. It's connected to your mood. It is connected to your hormones, to your gut, to your breathing. And all of a sudden, under chronic stress, we start having symptoms. Busy brain is this particular pattern of neuroinflammation in the hypothalamus or airport traffic control tower that leads to these three specific symptoms in our research of 17,000 people that we found out. Here are the three things. Okay. You can't focus during the day as an adult. You actually probably have adult onset ADHD. It's a real thing now. Ruminating anxiety. And the third thing is insomnia. That's a busy brain. So what does that clinically look like for the coaches and the executives? They're not going to say, I think I have adult onset ADHD. It goes something like this of, whoa, Megan, Dr. Romie are such high energy. I can't do that without a venti latte in the morning. And I'm going to tell them it's a latte, but I'm really on my fourth energy drink right now. And I'm so frazzled with multiple computers and browser windows open in front of me and in my brain. And then there's this perfectionism or anxious analysis that's going on. And something that should take us 3 minutes is taking us 37 minutes, and we're doubting ourselves. You can't focus all day. Your tasks are multiplying faster than you can clear them. You reach the end of the day and you're like, I need to take the edge off. I need a glass of wine or 3 to take the edge off. And if you don't drink alcohol, it's some overpriced supplement from some social media influencer. And then you're going to stand on sleep because you heard this podcast today. And you go to put your head down and there's 72 boring conversations going on in your brain. And the least significant, most negative thought is there, such as, oh my goodness, I finally get to meet Meg and I forgot to put hair serum in my hair and it's frizzy. And if you're watching the video, you're seeing Florida frizz in my hair that I know is equally problematic in Dallas, right? And that's hijacking your sleep. That's a busy brain.
So with that, we're pumping ourselves up with energy drinks in the morning and trying to bring ourselves down with wine, which is a depressant, in the evening. I mean, it's just, and then all these hijacking thoughts all around the place. So now we understand. And those of you who are saying, oh my gosh, she's talking about me, that's okay. Because we're not just going to tell you what it is. We're going to tell you what you can do. Absolutely. In response to that. And by the way, just real quick, if you're ever on your way from Orlando to Dallas and we get one of our thunderstorms, you call me, because you don't need to be stuck in the Dallas airport, which will just increase discomfort.
You know what? Same thing for Orlando. And my advice to anybody listening to this, don't try to fly in and out of Orlando in the summertime between about 11 a.m. and 5 p.m., the summer shower season. Same thing.
So you didn't know you were going to get travel tips, but we are the care that just keeps giving.
We are the
We're going to give and give and give. That's right. Okay. So now we've established what it is. What do we want to do with that? We obviously don't want to live in that place. So what do we do instead?
Listen, if you're a coach, we created an 8-week protocol that's in my book. You can walk people through, and coming soon in the next 18 months will even be a certification, because I want you to have responsible stress management techniques for high achieving clients. But the first step everyone can do for free, I need you to know your brain score. Here, if you're in the United States and you listen, we know our credit score. You can't do anything without your credit score. Get your homeowner or car insurance renewed, get a car loan, a home loan, pay rent, whatever it may be. Your credit score is checked. Most of us know it. But why do we not know our brain scores, especially women? We only think about it if a family member gets diagnosed with dementia. So I want to know, do you have a busy brain, and what's your brain score? We have a validated neuropsychology test that we relabeled as the busy brain test. We actually use this in research, and it's how I understood what was happening in the brain and created this protocol. 17,000 people took it. You can take it for free. The research is over, and it's 20 quick questions that takes less than 4 minutes. We will put a link here in the show notes to the busy brain test for free. And it is on my website, drromie.com, on my social media, LinkedIn and Instagram. And take it And I want to know,
Yes.
is your score above a 30? If it is, then pay attention. And that's step one, is just being aware, so that we're not just falling into this rabbit hole of here are 3 tips and tricks you can learn from TikTok or a LinkedIn post. This is actually giving yourself a number, giving yourself guidance of what to do, and then you measure that again so that you see the improvement.
So good. And we as coaches know that the first step to change is to evoke awareness, increase that
Yes.
awareness. This is
Yes.
helping us increase awareness so that we can determine the path forward.
That is it. Week one is replace self-judgment with self-awareness. When we have a busy brain, that voice of self-judgment, perfectionism, the inner critic comes in. If you're wondering as a coach why people aren't responding to inner critic work or confidence work, this is why. There's a busy brain. They don't need those tools. They need to heal a busy brain.
And I want people to hear that, heal a busy brain. This
Yes.
is a thing. This is a,
Yes. Yeah.
um, a syndrome, whatever we want to call it. And it
Yeah.
needs to be
Healed.
noticed,
Yes.
acknowledged, and healed.
Yes.
Okay. So what else do you want people to know? And I appreciate that resource. We will definitely have links for it. What would be the next step once we're aware?
Okay, so now you're aware, and we walk you through an 8-week protocol. I call them brain shifts. These are simple micro habits that we actually research. So, most people have read Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg or Atomic Habits by James Clear. We actually picked the micro habits for you that would heal a busy brain and researched it in over 1,000 executives. We took a lot of our companies and teams through the protocol and then said what's working and what's not, and let's tweak this, right? So that we walk you through an 8-week step-by-step micro habit that's not going to get in the way of your very full and productive schedule. So one, I want you to know we walk you through the entire protocol. So week 2, we send it to you for free in an email inbox, take the test, is restoring S in the shift protocol, which is sleep or your circadian rhythm. We have supplement recommendations as well as a 7-day sleep challenge that goes through the actually scientifically proven cognitive behavioral therapy techniques for insomnia.
Well, and I can say from my years of being a therapist and my years now of being a coach, when people can't sleep, when that's how we restore, that's how our body, resets. If you can't sleep, which is why I can imagine it's so far up in your first,
It is.
um,
It was the foundation, right? It is. We need to
yeah.
set that circadian rhythm, and that circadian rhythm not only affects sleep, but to your point, your mood, your appetite, hormones in both men and women. So it's absolutely key to restore it. But most people, by the time they get to us in the brain shift protocol, they've tried all the tips and tricks that they've seen on social media or gotten through basic coaching. So we actually walk them through the exact system of what's needed, and we include a couple of key supplements that have been researched and that are really important, both to calm the hyperactivity of the neurotransmitters in the busy brain, but reset the circadian rhythm. So we find that most individuals within 7 to 10 days actually start feeling better. And then we move on with the rest of the protocol.
So as you think through the people that you've had go through your protocol, what kinds of results are people
Yeah.
getting from this very real busy brain?
I want to talk about chapter 16 is the thing. If you have a busy brain, you go straight to chapter 10 of the book and it walks you through the 8-week protocol. And you read the stories of executives who were incredible and said, please share our story, Dr. Romie, to inspire others. I think of Kelly in chapter 16 of the book. We were doing the brain shift protocol with their team, and she was about ready to quit. Nobody knew. She, like many other middle-aged women, was a mother of 2 under the age of 10 and a high-performing sales leader, and having severe anxiety around her sales goals, and no one knew. And her doctor, I just loathe when this happens as a female doctor, said, you know what, Kelly, you're just a tired, anxious working mom. You either need to choose your work or your kids. How many women hear this? So she's going through the protocol only because her colleagues and team members were. In chapter 16 or week 7 of the protocol, we ask you to go get your labs so that we know the root cause. You're feeling better, you're sleeping, we have some biohacks for nutrition, and she gets them. And it turns out her thyroid hormones are wildly off. So much so that the primary care doctor did a thyroid scan and found a nodule that you couldn't see, on her throat. And it was stage 1 cancer, and we saved her life. I share this story because in
You
the
just gave me
research,
goosebumps.
1 in 8 women in America has an undiagnosed thyroid problem because doctors are writing us off as tired mothers, tired caregivers. We're overworked. We're just anxious and busy and hormonal. 1 in 8 women, and it's because most primary care doctors don't check the full thyroid panel. So in chapter 16, I have a lab slip that we designed. It is in the companion website as well for the book. Print it out and take it to your doctor, please. That is my hope. That is my dream, that this BrainSHIFT lab protocol will show up all over the country. And we did this because working with integrative functional medicine doctors like me can cost thousands. We created this in a way that actually traditional labs and insurances will cover these labs. So that is the one thing we see over and over. There's a slew of labs we check in men and women. Obviously, there's separate labs in men and women we check. But if I had to double click on one thing we see over and over, it's missed thyroid disease. And why is this important? Because in men and women who are under chronic stress, the most common symptoms of thyroid are you're low-key anxious and you can't focus. And so you end up on a stimulant drug like Adderall or Vyvanse, or a sedative at night like alcohol or a prescription sleeping pill, and they've missed the underlying root cause. And so thank you for letting me get on my soapbox. I think people read my heartbreaking story about doctors not listening to me as well and my thyroid. And so that was one thing out of the protocol I wanted to double click on. And thank you for letting me do that.
Absolutely. As a thyroid issue person as well. I mean, it is so prevalent. It's so
I mean, look,
prevalent.
what you would say, what are the chances both the person being interviewed and the podcast host have it? It's that prevalent. And by the way, if you're a man or a woman of color like myself, melanin in your skin, the risk increases even more, about 1 in 4 of having a thyroid disease. So please get it checked.
See, we did travel tips. We've done medical tips. We are giving and giving. So I know we're coming close to the end of our time, and it makes me sad because there's just so much that we
Yes,
could
go over. Yeah.
continue to talk about. I would like, you've talked about the book.
Yeah.
How can people kind of continue their journey? I'm assuming that what they need to start with is the book. So can you tell us a little bit more about the best way you would say to engage with that resource?
Whether you're a coach wanting to do this for your client or you want to do it yourself, please, again, take that busy brain test. You can, in chapters 1 through 4, I lay out what a busy brain is, and I share my story that, Meg so graciously said was in my TED Talk. In chapters 5 through 9, if you're a leader and you want to read the story of male allies and sponsors in my life while I go through the neuroscience, you'll read all about that, but go straight to chapter 10 and work through the protocol, right? And if you're like, and the book, by the way, if you don't have time to read it, it's on Audible. And we also have a course online that will walk you through it quickly in videos, the entire protocol. So whether you're a video person, an Audible, or you like to read, it's all there for you, right? But really, I appreciate being here because please know those regular tips, and nobody wants to work with a coach that's saying you need to eat berries and breathe. And here's another TikTok reel of puppies hugging each other.
Sorry. Okay. So I left. I want to thank you so much for bringing what we need to hear, because if this doesn't resonate with you personally, I promise you, at least 10 people in your life that you're thinking, oh, this is going to be valuable information for them, for the work that you're doing with leaders, for the work that whatever kind of coach you are, whatever kind of leader, who the people are that you lead. This is information that we need to get into the world. And Dr. Romie, thank you so much for taking your
Yeah.
time, your energy,
Yeah.
not just for this interview, but for the research you've put into this, the work that you've put into bringing this into the world.
I'm geeked out that you had me here because you have such an incredible community of coaches and leaders. And if they go on and share this, then think of the infinite healing that is happening. And I'm just full of gratitude to be of service.
So if you want to know more about the work that Dr. Romie's doing, be sure to check out the links either below this video if you're watching on YouTube or in the show notes at starcoachshow.com. Remember that at starcoachshow.com, you can access our over 400 videos of incredible experts like we've had today. As we move to close out this interview, I do want to let you know that my conversation with Dr. Romie will continue in the Star Coach community. Be kind to yourself, be kind to others. We're all here to do the heavy lifting together, and be sure to come back next week as we continue our journey. Thank you, Dr. Romie.
Thank you, Meg.